Hello and welcome to Bella Coconut Boutique on YouTube. If this is your first time joining me in learning a pattern, I want to just say welcome. I am so excited that you are here to join me for this pattern today. If you have joined me before in previous patterns, welcome back. I'm so excited to share this next one with you as well. Today we are going to be making little pumpkin keychains. Now, these are perfect for the fall. You do not have to do them as a keychain. You can tie string between them and use them in a garland. You can also just pop them around the house as decoration or anything that you choose. But I'm going to show you how to make these mini pumpkin keychains today. So to begin, with materials, you are going to need your hook. For this pattern, I am using a K hook, size 6.5 millimeter. If you find that your hook does not have a letter, just look for the size in millimeters. So 6.5 millimeter is the size hook that I'm using for this pattern. You're going to need needles. I tend to use two different sizes. One to weave in my yarn at the end and one to attach keychain pieces. For this one, I'm not going to be using this needle because I'm just going to crochet it into the project. Then you'll also need, if you are doing it as a keychain, some keychain parts. I am using these long bead connectors that I got off of Amazon, as well as these lobster clasp clips. Again, I also got off of Amazon. If you want the links for either of these keychain pieces, please just comment below and I will provide the links to where I got them on Amazon. I am not affiliated with Amazon or these companies. These are ones that I had purchased for my own personal use, and I'm just using them for the projects. So there's no retribution or any sort of affiliation with the companies that produce these or through Amazon. Now for this project, I am using a size 6 bulky yarn. This one is Loops and Threads brand. It is from Michaels. It is their Chenille Home Slim. And I'm using color terracotta. And then for the stem, I don't have the wrapper, but it is also Chenille Home Slim from Michaels, and that is in color agave. I'm just going to be using a little bit to create the stem. You're going to need polyfill fiber filling as well, a good pair of scissors, and sometimes if my yarn is shedding too much, and by shedding, I mean with the chenille yarn, you'll see that it just kind of pops off. So if you find that your yarn is shedding, I just like to sometimes just nick the end with my lighter to help not always stop it, but reduce the amount of shedding. So for this pattern, we are not going to be working in the round. We are going to be working back and forth across the yarn. So we're just going to do a slip knot. I like to leave just a few inches. And we are going to do 10 single crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we are going to work in the first 9 stitches. So we're going to go the second chain from the hook is where we're going to start our single crochets, and we're going to single crochet across 9. Now, I like to work in the bumps of the back of the stitches. If you choose to work in the top of the stitch, that's perfectly fine. I just find that when I am closing up the seam, by working in the back of it, it helps me to match the seam up easier. You do not have to do it that way. You can do it again in the top of the stitch or the back of the stitch. I'm just showing you how I like to do it. So I am going to go into the second stitch from the hook, and I'm going to single crochet across 9 all the way to the end. So that is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now I am not going to chain 1 when I turn, because I don't like, personally, when I chain 1 and I start my next stitch, it leaves this funky little bubble. So I choose not to, for this pattern, not to do the chain 1. So once you've done your 9 across, you will turn your work and you are going to single crochet in the back loop only. And you'll do that across your pattern. So we'll do that in the 9 stitches. And then when you get to the end of your row, again, back loop only. Do not chain your work, just turn, put your hook under the back loop only, and work your single crochets. So right now we have 2 rows. You're going to do this until you have 16 rows. Again, back loop only, 9 single crochets across, and we are not chaining 1 at the end of the round. We are just beginning our single crochet in the back loop only as we turn. So once you get to 16 rows, meet me back here and we will finish off our pumpkin. All right, so we just finished round 16. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 rounds or rows. And now we're going to close up our pumpkin. So like I said at the beginning, when I'm working in the starting chain, I like to work in the back bump. Now if you look at the beginning of the starting chain and the end of the row that we just worked, the stitching looks similar. So you're able to match up the stitches more evenly. If you worked in the top of the stitch, just make sure that you are crocheting across in 9 single crochets to close your pumpkin. So when I'm closing my pumpkin, I will go through the back loop only of the last row worked and into the front loop of the corresponding stitch. And I will just slip stitch through. And I'm going to work that way across. So back loop to front loop and slip stitch. I find doing the back loop to the front loop creates less bulkiness when you are stuffing it. It just doesn't create as much of a thick seam. And we are going to be flipping this inside out. So when we do the back to the front, those are the 2 stitches on the front side when we flip this inside out. So it creates like a nice seam. So back loop to front loop and slip stitch. Across all 9 single crochets. And then we're going to fasten off the yarn and leave a long tail, probably about 2 feet or so long, to sew. The reason that I leave a very long tail is that we are going to be weaving this under here to close, under here to close, and around to create the bumps in the pumpkin. So you'll need extra length in your yarn. We're just going to weave closed one end. So I like to just go under each top of the ridge. So I will go under and through to the other side. just pulling taut as I'm going along because it is a long piece of yarn. And then pull tight to close. And I like to just take my starting chain tail and that worked yarn and tie closed. You can also take your ending, your long yarn if you want, and weave under some of the stitches too. So now we've got to move the yarn from the closed bottom all the way up to the top. So I like to just kind of weave it up. And the reason being is that when we go up to the top and we're seaming it closed and we're pulling it closed, if we pull too tight and we haven't moved the yarn up, it's going to squish your pumpkin down. So I find that moving the yarn up to the top just helps to not have it get kind of flattened. So when I get to the top, I will pull the yarn through almost all the way. The ending loop, instead of pulling it all the way through, I like to just twist, insert my hook or my needle back through, and then kind of tie a knot. So this way, when I am pulling this top part closed, it's not pulling down the seam. And we are going to flip our pumpkin inside out. And we're going to do the same thing. We are going to weave our yarn under the tops of those ridges all the way around so that we can close our pumpkin from both sides. You don't want to pull too tight just yet because we do need to stuff our pumpkin. And when you find that you're back to the beginning, we are going to stuff our pumpkin as full as you would like. So I use polyfill fiber filling. You can use tails from previous projects. You can use this filling. You can use cut up cloth, whatever you kind of like to stuff your crochet projects with. I get my fiber filling at Walmart. Or I've gotten it on Amazon and Joann's or Michael's. You can also actually just go to Walmart and get one of their more inexpensive pillows that are like $3 to $5, and cut the pillow open and just take the stuffing out of there as well. That is an inexpensive option to get filling. So now we're just going to pull our pumpkin closed, and I am going to just weave my yarn under a couple of the stitches back and forth just to kind of secure the yarn at the top. And once you've done so, then you can decide if you want to add the bumps for your pumpkin. So if you want to just leave it as a round little ball and put a stem, then you can skip the next step and just leave your pumpkin as is and put a stem. If you want to create these like ridges, I will show you how I do that. So taking my yarn, I will just wrap it to the front and around, and then I just insert my hook somewhere in the middle and push it down through and pull. And as you pull, you'll see now it's kind of creating that ridge. So I'm just going to do that 3 more times so that in all I will have 4 bumps. So we did 1. Now I'm going to do number 2. Again, just inserting in the top and kind of pulling out through the bottom and pulling through. So there's 2. Then we'll do number 3 right across from the first one. And then 1 more across from the last. And now it kind of gives you a little bit more of a pumpkin shape. So once you've done your last wrap around, then I like to just weave my ending bits under stitches up and down. I'll do this 2 or 3 times, kind of going in a bob and weave, kind of a zigzag pattern. And this just helps so that the tail doesn't kind of fish its way out. So by going back and forth over the same stitches or under the same stitches, you're kind of just locking that yarn in. And then when you're ready, I just put my needle through, push it out, and try to pull that tail into the body of the pumpkin, and then trim off any excess. And so now we have our pumpkin. And now we just need to add the stem. So I've done it before where I've used a hook to pull my yarn through, but I find that it pulls up a stitch, or it'll actually start to pull the stuffing from the center. So I just use a needle to do that. So I cut about 20 to 24 inches of my green so that I can do my stem. What I'll do is I will put my needle under and through, and then I pull my yarn right back through that same stitch to give me my starting loop. So from here, we're going to crochet 4 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now this is where I add the keychain, and I will actually just crochet over the keychain and into the project. So I will add the clip on and the keychain piece, and I will feed it through all the way up to my needle, to my hook. And now working over the keychain pieces, I am going to slip stitch into the second loop from the hook, the second stitch, and down to the stem. So we're going to slip stitch into 1, 2, 3 stitches. Again, making sure that you're securing that keychain piece in. So slip stitch 1, 2, and 3. And in the last one, you're going to notice that it kind of starts to pull away from the pumpkin. That's okay, because we're going to tie it down. So we're going to fasten off and pull that through, and we're going to take our starting bit and our ending piece and tie those together. And now I just take a bigger hold needle, because I am pulling through 2 pieces of yarn, and we're going to hide the tails in the body of the pumpkin. And once they're through, I will tie them one more time together. I go over one way and then over the opposite, kind of creating like a little box knot. Now you can take your needle and push your yarn back in, or if you take your needle and put it right through the same stitch it came out and poke it through another side, we can pull those tails right back into the body to kind of hide them again. And then trim off any excess sticking out. Clean up any bits that you have that shed, and that is it. Now you have a pumpkin keychain. So you can take these and attach them to a backpack, to a bag. You don't have to use the keychain piece. You could just leave it as a little pumpkin. You could create a scene on a mantle, on a bookshelf with just some little pumpkins. You could tie string from the tops of the stems instead of the keychains and make pumpkin garland. You can really kind of do whatever you like with your pumpkins, but that is all that it takes to make this sweet little plush pumpkin keychain. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, please like and comment below. If you have any questions, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see any other small crochet patterns that I have come up with to share with you for keychains or little plushies. Make sure that you hit the bell for notifications. I am adding videos frequently, so I don't want you to miss out on any of them. So make sure that you get notified when a new video is available for you to watch. Again, thank you so much for supporting me here at Bella Coconut Boutique on YouTube. I appreciate your likes, your shares, and your subscribes, and I look forward to working on the next pattern with you. Happy crafting!